Hello and welcome to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the Message Boards, joined by the best co-host that money can buy, but which we never have to give him. So he's got to suck it up. Will Masisak, you know him as Accidental Zen and Bradshaw to Ben.
Tell the truth, Jeremy. You told me to stop coming, and I just keep showing up.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay. Yeah, it's pretty pathetic to say the least. What we've seen kind of over the past several games. So as you know, we gave up a record 249 yards to the Buffalo Bills in our stadium. So congratulations, record's broken. You know, gotta always applaud that. Yeah, boy, just what a shit show again. And honestly, if it wasn't for a forced fumble, there's no way we score. Honestly, like that's how bad the offense was. The fact that we had 7 on the board was very misrepresentative of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's the state of the offense and the state of the run defense, as we saw without Derek Harmon and lack of quality depth players behind him. And all the above, really. We could go on for hours. We won't, though. We won't bore you like that. But yeah, just another very lackluster performance. Doesn't seem like the offense can do anything right. Kind of what are some of your thoughts on the catastrophe that
Well,
was
before
the
the
Buffalo Bills
season,
game?
they did say that they expected the Steelers defense to be historic and record-setting, and to be fair, they were last weekend. So, that's at least one prediction that's come true about the season. Um, I, what's weird is if this had been the only time in recent memory that the other team just basically lined up and ran the same play over and over again, and the Steelers
Yeah.
couldn't figure out how to stop it on the ground, it would be one thing. But this was eerily familiar to the playoff game last year against Baltimore, where the Ravens basically just lined up and ran it down the Steelers' throat all day for even more yardage than Buffalo rushed for
Yeah.
last weekend. And certainly doesn't make you feel a lot better about the potential for improvement this week when they're just going to go back to Baltimore this week. So I think that's the combination of all those things. The sort of like the reaction to not that same running play over and over again, to like the coaching staff more or less going, "Hey, I don't know what to do. Do you know what to do? Not really." And so I guess there's nothing we can do. Like, they didn't even try anything drastic. Like, wouldn't you line up with like 5 down linemen and make them figure, like play goal line defense and make them throw the ball just to try something else? I don't know. That was weird to me.
Well, Will, that would mean we'd have to innovate, try something different,
Make an adjustment. Yeah.
make an adjustment. Well, I don't. All these things are very foreign to the Pittsburgh Steelers for the last several years. So, unfortunately, it just is what it is, man. Like, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna play our stupid nickel defense most of the time, and that's what we're gonna do at this point. There's no other way to say it. We won't. You know, multiple weeks ago, I thought with the moving of Ramsey to safety, we might finally see some real change. Nope, we went right back to the same old shit with players at different positions. That's basically all we did. So I don't know what it's going to take to I don't know, maybe game plan for an opponent on a week to week basis anymore, because it sure as hell doesn't seem like we do that on offense or defense, really. Have some strokes of genius that last for 8 seconds, and then we're doomed for the next 80 minutes. That's how it feels like
But
sometimes. So
here's another thing about this game that was very weird was we talked at length last week about how bad Buffalo's run defense was, right?
mm-hmm.
And it felt like a game where they never really committed to, like, getting the ball to Jalen Warren and letting him pound it on that defense, or for our like that. Part of the reason is that if you feel like you got to have Spencer Anderson in the game, then that gives Buffalo's run defense a chance to stack the box. And I felt like the real thing they could have done was to threaten play action and threaten with multiple tight ends, but use your Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington triplet of tight ends and DK, and you have some options there. You can RPO to the slant, you can throw to the tight ends, off either in the middle or on the side, and you always have the opportunity to get Jaylen Warren out on the edge, catching a pass with two tight ends in front of him, which is, I think, kind of an ideal situation for even the kind of game, even the style that they seem to want to play, which I hate. But
Right.
if you're going to do that style, at least then you've got a guy in Jaylen Warren who's excellent making yards after the catch, especially on the edges. And you got tight ends blocking for him on the outside. That just feels like a good plan. And they didn't do anything like that. Like I'm not even sure before the game got out. Once the game got out of hand, they didn't even play Jaylen Warren anymore. But even while the game was still close, it felt like Jaylen Warren had like 3 carries. So I'm not sure exactly what so you're saying game plan. They neither game plan well for the opponent nor make adjustments. And it kind of feels like it just gets back to what you said. We're going to do what we do. And if we're not successful at it one week, it's because we didn't execute well enough. And we didn't, it's not the plan was bad. And it's not that we didn't make adjustments, it's that we just couldn't do it the way we're supposed to do it. And if we did, everything would be fine. And you even heard players say that this week about how it's nothing to do with, the coaching staff. They're putting us in plenty of good positions. We're just not making plays, yada, yada.
Yeah, as Barry say, go on and on and on and on. But I mean, when your own players are starting to, we saw it, 2 weeks ago with Patrick Queen coming out saying about the schematic parts of the defense, asking the linebackers to do, cover 2 different zone spots. You saw it this week. You mentioned it earlier. TJ Watt basically said they ran the same play like 17 times and we never got it figured out. Just the noise it's coming from everywhere now. I mean, you've got all-time Steelers legends coming out and just being like, what the fuck? Like to put it, to put it explicitly there, what the hell? So when Big Ben is starting to say a change needs to be made, when James Harrison is commenting that Coach Tomlin was never a great coach, he was just a good coach, all these players are starting to come out. Trey Essex, he's been a up and down if you follow old Steelers players, but he's been on the bandwagon to get rid of him. I mean, we could go on and on and on kind of about what they're not doing and what they need to do. And then you point out even what it's frustrating even with the personnel like that we're trying to play with, like not playing with Jaylen Warren, who is clearly our best offensive weapon. And I understand Gainwell has had his moments and he should see the field sometimes here and there, but to not have Jaylen on the field it's just a crime and a half.
I mean, Jeremy, to not have him on the field any week is not a good plan.
Right.
To have him not on the field very much against an opponent that can't stop the run is like, we just try to fool them. I guess it's not like we were really like play actioning them and like saying, well, we know you're really worried about stopping the run, so we're going to run a bunch of play action against you. And granted, I understand your quarterback is hurt and he can't take snaps from under center, and that complicates things already. So if you're going to play that guy, yeah, you got to play a slightly different game. But man, it's like they got away from that so far and so fast against a team that has had major trouble stopping the run. And for good measure, the Steelers weren't really able to run it that well against them when they did run.
Yeah, no, but they weren't. It just the head scratching just continues from us and the Steelers fan base, and it's really hard to know if anything's really going to change the rest of the year. I don't know why you think it would at this point. So, but we're going to be here and try to sell you on some hope throughout this podcast.
But hang on. So just what do you make of this? Does it feel to you, as it does to a lot of people, that the Tomlin has to go sentiment is higher than it's ever been? Like I do feel like people were saying before the season it's pointless to hope that the Steelers, if they continue to try to do things, fit a square peg into a round hole and do the Mike Tomlin way, since we know where that leads us, that we should be hoping that that fails so that they'll get rid of him. And people said before the season, well, it doesn't matter what happens to the Steelers. They're never going to get rid of Mike Tomlin. There's never going to be this sentiment of, getting rid of him. And even most fans don't feel that way. Do you feel like it's this, we crossed the threshold somehow on Sunday?
I mean, if the Greeks have ever been at the gates of Troy, like this is what it's come to. Like, hence your background to a little bit for those of you who aren't watching us on video this week. Will has a great background of Steelers fans with pitchforks and torches. I'm guessing that was an AI generated image. Very spot on point. I like it.
Although it looks quite a bit like the South Side right now. But yeah, same thing.
Yeah, but yeah, no. I mean, absolutely. I honestly thought we had reached this point in other seasons, but they always found a way to like come back and make it interesting at the end. But I will tell you this: if this type of football gets played for 2 more weeks, and like the never had a losing season goes out the window, and we legitimately could lose the last 5 games or 4 games now. Like that's where we're at. Hold on, are we 6-6 now? No, we're 6.
Yeah. Steelers are 6-6.
Yeah, coming into week 14. Yeah, so I mean, we have only so many more games to try to like change the perception of what this team is going to look like, and really the future of what this organization is going to look like. If it doesn't change, yeah, the people are going to be ready to go down to the South Side, burn down, go into Acrisure, light the billboard on there, the scoreboard on fire. I mean, yeah, the team. I mean, this is the first time ever that Renegade got booed at Acrisure Field and Heinz Field. Like that used to be a rallying cry, and people are just like, no, screw it. No.
Well, there have been plenty of times the last few years that it was pointed out that they played it at like in ridiculous situations.
Yeah.
And that the defense collapsed immediately after, even worse that they had before that. So it's not like the writing hasn't been on the wall for a while, but I do feel like they ought to at least be a little more selective about when they're whipping it out.
Yeah, they definitely do or whatever. But I mean, then there's the fired Tomlin champs. That's probably the loudest audible thing that you've ever been able to catch on TV regarding the Steelers' frustrations toward Mike Tomlin. There's been plenty of boos in the past. Don't get me wrong. There has. But there has never been a fire Tomlin chant that resonated that loudly at a home Steelers game.
I mean, I thought "Go Pack Go" was earlier this year was the most incredible.
Yeah, that was embarrassing for sure.
But booing Renegade and fire Tomlin, that's next level, man. Like, I'm not sure how the situation gets resolved, and there's a lot of things that can happen over the next few weeks. I don't expect much good to happen, but there's always the possibility that they'll figure out a way to win at least one game that we really don't think they're going to win on the way out, and to win the games that you're supposed to win and maybe be 9-8. I'm not sure if that gets them in the playoffs or wins the division for them, but it might, and they might get to a playoff game, and they theoretically could win one, and that would probably soften whatever's going on right now. But I still don't think it. I think that seems to be a pretty unlikely outcome, and that doesn't. I don't necessarily think they've underperformed based on what their talent level is. Mm-hmm. So it's just frustrating because average coaches coach to the level of the talent. Poor coaches take, good talent or seemingly good talent and underperform. And, good coaches take a modicum of talent and make something special out of it. And that's just what coaching is all about. This does not feel like that situation where the coaching really makes things better. The coaching the Steelers have right now ranges from, neutral to really poor. And it's the results are what frustrates people.
Yeah. I mentioned it, several episodes ago about Steelers coaches to watch for like future, coaching positions. We had 2 position coaches after the initial list of 24 of just, names to keep on your radar. You're like, not even like serious candidates, so that just goes to the level of bad coaching that we've seen. So I'm totally on board with you there that, we have more than enough talent to be more competitive than what this team is doing. Absolutely about it.
I guess. I
But
mean, I do think that the situation, what they've done with their offense, for several years now, um, you can just tell they've basically intentionally sabotaged it to get a desired effect, which is they want time of possession and they want to eke their way to third down and short and to make the games basically shorten the games. They're playing for the four corners offense, right? that,
yeah,
that bad teams will play, or that North Carolina maybe played at times when they had a big lead, and they're just there to kill the clock, and figure that the other team will make a mistake. And as we've seen, that works from time to time, but it isn't. It's stale, and when it doesn't work, it just looks bad.
yep, absolutely. Well, we've gone on it about before. The Mike Tomlin coaching tree is absolutely non-existent in the NFL,
Yeah, I mean he'll get credit for Brian Flores, and they'll
which
get
he
credit
shouldn't.
for who's the guy that was the offensive coordinator on the other side of the ball we played earlier this year. That was someone that Tomlin mentored. So he's got a couple guys in the NFL now.
Hmm.
Not that they're really saying anyone's really going to say Brian Flores came through the Mike Tomlin tree,
Right.
but those are at least two coaches that he's had that went somewhere else that are successful to this point. But yeah, it's like there's no, I don't know, man. There's no legacy there. It to me, been saying this for a while now. People are just coming around to fire Tomlin, but they have really yet to look at the Rooneys and how they are not only running the team in a general sense, but their specific fingerprints on what the style of play is, what the attitude is towards, the Steelers' identity, and the kind of, direction that they've set the franchise in and set the coaching in, that has made a huge difference. And I personally think it's got to be 1969. You have to clean out the whole system. You have to. 1969, the Steelers replaced, who was running the team, from lovable but terrible Art Rooney to Dan Rooney, who was the guy that was probably the greatest executive in the history of the sport. And then they had his brother Art Rooney Jr. running the personnel department, and they hired Chuck Noll. Chuck Noll drafted Joe Green. They got that Bill Nunn made him a full-time scout, the guy that scouted all of the historically black colleges and legal league football, not legal league football. What would this be back in those days? Black, predominantly black schools that no one else had scouted before. So, they turned all of that around in one off season, and it was a gamble. I'm sure in 1969 it was a huge gamble to make all of those changes to a lovable loser franchise. But man, what a difference. And then Chuck Noll brought in, completely different coordinators who were some of the best coordinators the team has ever seen. So like the coaching staff, they just elevated the level of not only the coaching staff, but expectations for what the team could be. And they turned over the roster. That was the other thing that happened. There were like two guys left in 3 years, and then 3 years from the time they took over. So I feel like that's kind of a reset is what's really needed. Yeah. Whether they have the guts to do that now, I feel like Danny Rooney or Daniel Rooney or whatever is going to be called publicly, that guy's a football guy. He was a quarterback. He at a college level at D1, he was he had leadership qualities. Granted, he was not a starter; he's mostly a backup. But the guy is an offensive guy that understands offensive football, that understands analytics, that understands technology, and has been involved with the football team, with the Steelers in various capacities. He's been getting his training both in the front office side and the coaching side. There's absolutely no reason that guy who's 36 years old or going to be 36 is not ready to take over the team. That's the same age that Dan Rooney was when he took over.
Interesting. Okay.
And Art is older. Art too is older than either Art Rooney was or Dan Rooney was when Art Rooney took over. So, it's like they're at the point where they could make that move, and I feel like that would make me more hopeful than even immediately announcing that they're firing Mike Tomlin. It would just make me feel more hopeful. Like in a way, I feel like the way it should go is Art Rooney should work out a deal with Mike Tomlin, and he retires or resigns in such a way that the Steelers still control his rights. He's going to take a leave of absence from the NFL, whatever's happening. And then the next thing that Art should say is that he is turning over the reins to run the team to Daniel Rooney, and then Daniel Rooney will determine what's happening with the front office and what's happening with the coaching search, and that is going to be his first part of his legacy as the Steelers owner. That's what Dan Rooney did, and they prepared the younger Rooney to do that for his whole life, basically. So why not now?
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point because Ed Bouchette, kind of a Pittsburgh reporter and all that, kind of brought up the same situation that, uh, you know, um, Rooney had when Noel was going into his last year. He told him that this is what we expect or whatever. And I think he had like a 5-11 season, and then said, I'm sorry, but it's time to move on. We could be staring at believe it or not, a 6-11 season. Which, is the math right there? I might have gone 5-11. He went 5-11. We could be staring at 6-11. I was getting my numbers all messed up there. But I mean, yeah, I feel like we're at that point where he said, I read it earlier. My apologies, I'm not getting it exactly right, but we're in the type of situation now where if the poor season like this continues on, he expects Art Rooney to make major changes. And I think the only major change that you can reasonably expect would be Mike Tomlin stepping down, stepping away from the Steelers as a head coach. There's been people that have said, he still has the love for the game, but it sounds like he's tired. So I think everyone's kind of tired at this point of the same stuff or whatever, because we've teased, we're going to make changes this offseason. We're going to make changes or whatever. It's time to make the big change because all the little changes haven't added up to shit. Excuse my French, but they just haven't added up.
I don't know, Jeremy. I'm still predicting. I think the Steelers will. The sweet spot for the rest of their season is that they are eight. They make it to 8-8. Like I said, between the Browns, the Dolphins, and some game they're not expected to win, that maybe they'll figure out a way to get to 9 wins. I would say if they beat the Dolphins and Browns, it wouldn't surprise me if the Baltimore game the last week is meaningless. In other words, that they can't win the division by beating Baltimore.
Yeah,
and if that's the case, getting to 9 wins in the last game of the season at home, maybe Tomlin's last game as a Steelers coach, feels like he can ride off into the sunset with never had a losing season, and maybe be easier for him to walk away. I don't know, but if I'm writing the script, that's the script I expect to see.
Yeah, that would sound very eerily similar to Cowher's last game.
Yeah, the 8-8.
They were struggling, but they were going to win that last one, knowing that was probably going to be Bill's last game. If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, that was the year they drafted Santonio Holmes, and to end that game, he took the first pass in overtime to win that game, and I was actually at that game, which is why I remember that.
And you were not on the escalator on your way home.
No, I was not. I was not until after we beat the Bengals there in Cincinnati. So, I think we could talk about till we're blue in the face. We want changes. If we keep playing like this, they're going to happen. But with that being said, we're going to do something a little different tonight. I figured this would be a little fun to introduce to the show. Introduce some trivia questions, and Will, I think you're gonna know some of these.
I don't know, maybe. I wouldn't count on it.
All right. Well, the first one is pretty easy, and I was gonna use it to tie into tonight anyway with the coaching, but we've already talked about it. How many seasons did Chuck Noll serve as the head coach of the Steelers?
10, 23.
Good call. The answer is 23, sir. By the way, if Mike Tomlin is going to have 23 seasons, you're going to have to find a new podcast host. So I'm giving Art Rooney an ultimatum here.
I
I'm
think
giving you my
so. Yeah.
5-year notice on whether
Yeah.
you're going to have to replace
By
me.
the way, speaking of trivia, that game, the San Antonio Holmes game that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
I think that was the third year of the current never had a losing season streak.
Okay.
And I think it's the closest maybe they've come to not having a non-winning season because they were behind, I think, late in that game and
Yeah,
tied
they were.
one in overtime. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's they were maybe 5 minutes away from having a losing season for the first time in however many years that is now.
Yeah, since right before Big Ben got
Yeah,
drafted. That
the streak started 2004.
yeah.
Did anything happen in 2004, Jeremy? Here's a trivia question for you.
No, I don't think anything special happened. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I was lucky I got the first one. All right.
All
I
right.
only got it because
There's
I'm
only
old.
one more because they both tied to the coaching. I was
Oh,
going to
okay.
keep it specific tonight. In 2004, what offensive coordinator left the Steelers to become the head coach of the Buffalo Bills?
Did Ken Wisenhunt become the coach of the Baltimore Buffalo Bills?
No,
No, so it wasn't him.
no, before him.
Oh, Shan Gailey. No, I missed one. There's somebody in between them that I
Someone
can't
in
remember who it
between.
is. What's that?
There's someone in between. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna as soon as you say it, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, of course. No, I don't remember who was
It was
before.
Mike Mularkey.
Oh yeah, Mike Malarkey. Mike full of malarkey.
Right. That's how we feel about this season, malarkey. But anyways, we're done talking about this past game because we've got another team that's going to run all over us this next week. The we have to play the Ravens. And worse than that, we have to go to Baltimore to play the Ravens. So tough matchup. You know, this is a team that we've know very very well. So who knows? Might be a close game. We'll see. But unfortunately, we are going to be missing Derek Harmon again. He's already been ruled out. So if the Ravens are smart, they're going to run a lot.
You think?
I think. So
I mean, Jerry, I kind of think this. The key to this game is when Baltimore comes out and runs the exact same play that Buffalo ran for the entire game on the first play.
mhm.
It's like, what would there's the bet. There's the that should be the bet. The only bet on DraftKings that matters is will Baltimore run that play first? And if so, how many yards will it get?
Right.
Over under 4.5. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Running the ball is kind of running the ball. And when you have Derrick Henry and you have also, like, I think the Steelers always have trouble. As I said last week, when the quarterback is truly mobile and truly is a running threat to like design run play kind of quarterback,
Yeah.
then I feel like the Steelers defense has so many troubles because they always have to account for that in the scheme. And that opens them up to getting killed on the ground running it because they have their less one defender because they always have one assigned to the quarterback, it feels like. And the pass rush runs in controlled lanes instead of stunts and whatever. So I do think that was a factor last week. And even if Lamar is not 100% healthy, it's still going to be a factor this week. So if you're Baltimore, you got to line it up and run, duo inside and see what happens, don't you? I mean, and he certainly is able to bounce it outside the same way that Cook did if need be. So I don't know, man. I don't really know what else could possibly happen, and I don't see what could happen in 7 days for the Steelers to turn that around. What do
Yeah,
you
I
think?
mean, I'd be running it. Keanu Benton, Isaiah Loudermilk, like whoever they throw out there, that's who I'm running at. Like I'm not running at Hayward because he's still decent against the run. He's not great anymore, but he's still decent. But I mean, I'm lining up at whoever's lining up that other, defensive tackle, nose tackle spot. That's who I'm running at all game long. Because Linderbaum's a great center. If anything, he can get in front of people, and he's a master of the leverage game. Because he's just natural. He's not like super tall, but he's like a good 6'3", 290-pound guy who just understands how to play the game, and he's very athletic. So that hurts even more, for him to get up and then to get on linebackers and stuff. So, I mean, and then it looks like Pat Queen is very questionable to play too. He hurt his ass this past week. Sorry, yes, it's a glute injury. I had to do that. Been waiting to do that all day. Um, but yeah, so we can talk about the run game, and how we expect us to kill there, but they they've got the tight ends that have killed us too. Isaiah Likely is a complete and total mismatch. And they finally started using him last week. I don't know what took him so damn long. I know he was hurt for a little bit this year, but he's been back for a little bit. Just gave Mark Andrews a giant deal, which really confounded me. It's like a 3-year, $36 million deal or something. I was like, well, what you doing giving all this money to a tight end you still don't throw to?
Yeah.
That
And
sounds
why
like
this
what we did with Pat
why
Fryer.
this week? Like why right now? Very weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very weird there. So I don't know what's going on there. And I don't care if we picked up a Pro Bowl wide receiver from 2018. I don't think that'll be the difference. For those of you who haven't caught that yet, yes, the Steelers picked up Adam Thielen off waivers.
The Darius Slay of wide receivers.
Yes, the Darius Slay of wide receivers, as Will put it earlier today.
Adam Thielen and Darius Slay used to be really good players.
Yeah, they used to be. They used
Yeah.
to be. I'll tell you what. Probably the one that took the cake today when I was on Twitter just looking at Steeler stuff. Adam Thielen is going to be really effective when he knows all 6 pass plays and all 6 running plays that we run. I was like, shit, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I
it
don't know
won't
who
take him
did
long.
that. I'm not stealing it, but I found that out there and I was like,
Yeah, well, it was also when you consider that Darius Hayward Bade still hasn't caught the moving train. Yeah, hopefully it won't take too long. I don't know. Look, I think about it this way. Think about this: the big name signings that the Steelers had this offseason. They had Darius Slay, DK Metcalf was a trade, but the new
yeah,
very excited. We're very excited about that. Juan Thornhill, um, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Rodgers,
yeah,
right? And for that matter, Scotty Miller and whoever else they had, I forgot now. They got another vet wide receiver that haven't done anything with.
Oh,
Bottom
Robert
line is,
Woods. Robert
yeah, there you
Woods
go, Robert
is the
Woods.
name you're thinking of.
So bottom line, really only Jalen Ramsey has been. I think Jalen Ramsey kind of excellent. I think he's a Pro Bowl. He's deserving of a Pro Bowl night. I don't think he's going to get it this year. Pro Bowl votes tend to really favor good teams. It's
They do.
very rare to get
Well,
somebody.
it's a popularity contest now.
Yeah,
It's
and
not what it used to be.
but
So
it's certainly like if you've got to be outstanding in fantasy at a fantasy stats position to get a Pro Bowl vote from the general public when you play for a team that's not a top 15 team, top 12 team. So there's that. So anyway, Jalen Ramsey pretty good. Aaron Rodgers, I think, has been at minimum disappointing. He had a couple of good games to start off the season. This stretch of 5-6 games has been brutal.
it really has.
So, and DK Metcalf's pretty much been a no-show. It's like basically Jalen Ramsey is the only guy out of all those big signings that people were so excited about. We're winning, we're going to the Super Bowl. Really, only one of them has panned out. And if you told me before the season to pick one, I don't think I would have picked Jalen Ramsey. There was a lot of scuttlebutt that Jalen Ramsey was really poor the last couple of years, and that he wasn't going to come in and be Jalen Ramsey, but he's been solid. I have no complaints about him. One of the few players on the team I feel like have really played outstanding ball. But man, yeah, the other guys, they're grim. So
yeah,
we'll see what Adam Thielen can do, but I'm not super excited.
well, like you said, he's got to jump on the moving train, which we have been historically slow. We could go sign Ben Roethlisberger and say, well, we're going to bring you along in 4 games and let you play the last one. It's like that's the type of stupidity we have with the whole moving train thing. And a lot of it is because we are so reliant on what we want to do rather than let's just go out there and play football. We're so reliant on we have to run the football this way or these are the passes we're okay with. Well, we can't just go out there and say, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to play football, we're going to do what we need to do to win the game. That's not Pittsburgh Steelers football anymore. It just isn't. So
I mean, Jeremy,
Um,
I'll tell you this right now. This is something I've been saying on this show for at least 10 years. And that is if the Steelers would just go into Baltimore or a game with the Ravens and have the mentality of we're just going to attack. We're going to line up. We're going to wing it all over the field. We're going to attack that secondary. We don't believe in their pass rush, and we are just going to pick them apart through the air, the way that like the Patriots would have done with the Steelers back in the day. We're going to
mhm.
spread them out, spread them and shred them, and that's going to be our strategy. We're going to try to put up as many points as we can. Lamar's not 100%. They're never going to catch us, and we're going to speedboat them, whatever. But it's like if they could just not get straight into a rock fight, in the first series of the game with Baltimore, I think they'd have a chance. They'd have a better chance to win this game. Coming out in the, rock fighting a team that has a superior run game to yours it seems like a really bad idea.
Yeah, well, and the sad part is, we've kind of seen over the last few weeks. I've seen some cut ups on Twitter. Roman Wilson is actually getting open a little bit, but we just have no intention of ever throwing the ball his way. So it's like, what does it even matter? It goes to us not using Pat Fryermuth, except only against zone. Apparently, he's just our zone beating tight end. What a dumbass
I
thing
mean,
to
to be
say.
fair,
But
that is really his going on. He's two things he does pretty well. He's good against his own, and he's a good blocker in space against like defensive backs.
right,
So
well, and I get that. I'm just saying
I
it's
don't
not like
argue with that. I'm saying that's true, but on the other hand, is he better than Jonnu Smith at those at the other things?
I don't know. Johnny
Probably.
has been pretty horrible this year.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like yeah, I would prefer to have somebody who's better at the against man coverage and whatever, but I don't think Jonnu Smith is so clearly better that you can't give Pat Fryermuth some chances. But
Right,
they don't
right.
seem to play. They have their personnel groups that they're all set on using, and they don't necessarily mix and match too much. As for Roman Wilson, I will say this: if I'm playing defense, I'm considering who the spotlight targets are. So I'm in the secondary. I'm like, there's DK Metcalf, and here's Kenny Gainwell, and I'm mainly focusing on what those two guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will respect Roman Wilson running the third route in the progression the moment that they get serious about getting in the ball. That's A. And
Right.
B, if it's in the middle of the field, I'm definitely like, I'm not going to the middle of the field to cover somebody unless I don't have anybody else to cover or they start working it a little bit against me because otherwise it'd be pointless to. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Play the U.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And there's a whole strategy to defending the Pittsburgh Steeler offense the last few years. The U-shaped defense will solve your problems. But yeah, so I mean, the Ravens always present a significant challenge. I know you said you'd come out and wing it all over the place. That might actually work well since Nate Wiggins is dealing with a foot injury, and it's not the first time it's flared up this year too. It's flared up in prior weeks, so it'll be interesting to see if he goes, but might be the one where you try it, but who the hell knows? Because so much depends on Aaron Rodgers and his one good arm.
We
So
didn't we didn't do it when the Ravens were missing all of their secondary. I think
yeah,
we played them once where like all of their corners were hurt. They were down to like their fifth cornerback, and we still ran up the middle on first down. It's like that's the game that is perceived that you have to play against Baltimore if you're Pittsburgh. You have to prove that you're tougher and that you're more manly or whatever. Like that's the mentality, and I get that that's what the mentality is. I don't understand it really, but
yeah. Honestly, I think one of the ways Pittsburgh could win this game is if the Ravens get in their own way again. If they choose not to run the ball, the Steelers might have a fighting chance because I don't know what it is, but they almost refuse to involve Zay Flowers in their game plan. For as good as that kid is, that they rarely use him, and I think his frustrations are starting to show this year with that too, with his lack of usage. Rashad Bateman came off almost a Pro Bowl campaign last year. Might have actually snuck in. I can't remember. He's been complete afterthought again this year. So week to week, I don't know what the Ravens are going to do when it comes to their offense, and
yeah.
so hopefully John Harbaugh can pull a John Harbaugh and have no clue what to do on offense.
I don't know. And like their offensive coordinator is awesome. I don't think that's the issue with them. I think it's really, first of all, they had backup quarterbacks for a few games there,
They
which
did, they did.
never really going to help your outlook. And then the second thing is Lamar, already has limitations built in that the
Mm-hmm.
things that he's outstanding at can overcome his limitations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But since he's not 100%, I don't think he's gonna, you know, push the ball downfield to wide receivers a lot in the condition that he's in right now. I mean, fortunately for him, when you play Pittsburgh, you have tight ends running free in the middle of the field, and you can just dump it
Yeah.
off to them, and you'll be perfectly fine. So that's a good game plan for this week. But yeah, I think the thing about Zay Flowers is when Lamar is really on top of his game, he is letting the rush come past him. He's finding an escape route, and then he's looking downfield to wide open guys. That's that when
Mm-hmm.
they were really rolling last year and in previous years, that's what they do. But I think Lamar just can't quite doesn't he's not physically quite to the level of where he can always evade what's coming at him, which has
Yeah.
made him want to get rid of the ball sooner. Or that's taking him a little bit out of his game. It's sort of like what the Steelers have traditionally tried to make him do. It's like we're not going to just run crazy past you. We're going to play contain and make you throw the ball from the pocket on time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you beat us doing that, so be it. Yeah, and he's gotten better at that in recent years. But yeah, that thing about pushing the ball downfield, boy, if you're a threat to run and you evade the pass rush's first wave, you can do a lot of damage. That's a big part of Lamar's game. Not sure, how if that's he's going to have those kind of opportunities on Sunday or not. That's key to the game.
Yeah, honestly, the Bengals, who the Ravens played last, that they actually played Lamar very well. That what they almost didn't rush up the field, but they ran with him side to side. Like they had the speed on the edge, and even a D tackle, one of their D tackles was like really, really fast. I can't remember the name of who it was, but they were able to run with him to the sidelines, which negated his ability to get upfield. So maybe Herbig and Watt can help chase him out or whatever. Even though Watt's not near the athlete that he used to be, especially turning and running anymore. It just doesn't seem like he has that gear anymore, unless he's got a pre-existing angle, so to say. But running with him to the outside was definitely something that was working for Cincinnati last week. And guys, guys were open here and there, but he made poor choices too. So if we can force him to run east west and not north south and make bad decisions, we very well could have a shot. Because we all know if Pittsburgh doesn't get a turnover, we can't win ball games. So that's a thing. But yeah. So I mean, looking at Baltimore's defense, that there aren't a ton of big names on that defense anymore. 2 or 3 years ago they had some big names, but Matt Abike's out for the year. But they don't have like otherworldly guys out there on defense anymore. Like we used to fear when we used to come to this matchup where we knew it was hammer versus hammer.
They still got Travis Jones. They still got two big dudes in the middle.
They do. John
So,
Jenkins, Travis Jones, both very good guys. And
by the way,
have
I think
been
that
for
was
them.
part of the key with the Steelers not being able to run is they try to run them. They try to run up the middle where that's the strength of Buffalo's defense. Really, the place to get them was their linebackers and they're on the edge. And it's a similar situation this week. I think running, between the tackles is going to be hard for the Steelers in this game. So, they still got big bodies in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
They have Kyle Hamilton to kind of clean up, on the outside. And then it's just a question of like, well, how are you gonna beat Kyle Hamilton getting to you? In other words, you got to misdirection, you got to do some stuff to keep him occupied. You got to throw some play action against him to keep him, a step late to getting to balls, and probably run on the edges rather than run on the edges and away from Kyle Hamilton. Probably a better strategy than trying to run up the middle against those two big bodies.
Yeah, if there was ever a week to bring back the toss sweeps that were so effective against the Bengals in our first matchup, this would be the week to do that. And some other interesting things, a few weeks ago, I mentioned that, we were kind of using our dump off options as almost like screens with Darnell Washington and Spencer Anderson, almost acting as like predetermined blockers on the dump off. Like that would be another great strategy that this week to kind of capitalize against their linebackers who, are still kind of proving themselves. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But
Kyle Hamilton is not quite Troy Polamalu, but that's the type of impact that he has on games.
mm-hmm.
But he also has he has a nearly undefeated record. Friend of the show from Pit with Love, you might remember him sometimes, said that he's pretty sure that he gets them as his regular team in his home market, and he's pretty sure that Kyle Hamilton has been injured at least once in every game he's ever played. It kind of seems like, I don't know if it's true, but it does sort of seem that way, like the way Darius Slay has been the last few weeks. It's like there's always some play where Kyle Hamilton just gets killed or he rolled up or something where he's legitimately hurt, but it's just like this function of where he's around the ball all the time and there's a lot of bodies around the ball. But yeah, Kyle Hamilton is healthy enough to play. He's a game wrecker, man, much like Polamalu was.
He definitely is. And it's crucial that Pittsburgh gets a win this week if they want any chance of the playoffs, because it doesn't look like we're going to beat teams out of the wild card spot right now with the way teams are playing. It just seems like teams are going to be ahead of them.
There's too many of them.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was already saying. I mean, we there's a handful of teams that just feels like, yeah, they're going to have a better record down the stretch than the Steelers. So really, the only way to get into the dance is to win the division. So this is such a big game if they do want to get things turned around and get going. So with that being said, believe it or not, there's some other matchups that we should probably pay attention to this week. By the way,
teams have their bye this week. Can you
imagine
a season where you don't have a bye until now? Like, how awesome is that? Like, I don't remember the Steelers ever having a bye anywhere close to week 14 or whatever we're at now. That's nuts.
Well, how awesome is that the best team in the AFC gets their bye this week? That they're going to have 2 byes in the next month and a half or whatever. So, like, the Patriots are going to be well rested, like, heading into the playoffs. They're a team that no one's going to want to play because they're going to get this bye and then get 4 weeks of football and then get another bye. They're literally going to get a week off, play a month of football, get another week off, and maybe go on a deep playoff run. So be interesting to see if that happens. But they've been fun to watch this year. Kudos to Drake May. That kid is really playing well. But like I said, let's turn our head around to some other NFL action this week. We're actually going to start off with the game on Thursday night. Very good game that's looking to shape up here. The Cowboys are heading to Detroit. The red hot former Pittsburgh Steeler-led George Pickens Cowboys. Did I say that? Did I have to bring that up? Yes, I did. But the Lions are at home. They're favored by 3 after losing on Thanksgiving. They're right back to playing football on Thursday, believe it or not. Yeah, I love how the schedule works sometimes. But I'll start off with this. This feels like it's a game where the Lions have to get stuff going. But it doesn't look like Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be playing. And he's such a huge and key part of that offense. I'm going with the Cowboys here. Call me crazy, but they're riding the hot juju train right now. That's the train everyone seems like they're starting to jump on right now, and I am too. Well, one thing I've got to give Detroit some grief about is they can't stop anyone on defense. For as good as Aiden Hutchinson is, they just can't stop teams when they need it. And the lethal combination of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on the outside, I feel like if there was ever a week that you want to, get some prop bets going, this is a great week for George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. So I like the Cowboys to kind of outrace the Lions here because they've been playing better defense too that they have. So I like the Cowboys to go to Detroit and steal a win and somehow remain playoff relevant. Who would have thought that like 4 weeks ago? So, Will, what are your thoughts on this?
Jeremy, guess who has the worst defense in the NFL? The Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Guess if you're a team that Armand Ross St. Brown is going to miss the game, who would you like to have stepping in there? They have a young receiver you might have heard of before,
Hmm.
played for the University of Arkansas, and has never dropped a pass in like his entire high school, college, and professional career.
Hmm.
So,
I don't know who that is. Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's the thing. They have uh, they're probably in a pretty good position to play without Amon Ra St. Brown. Sorry, I keep saying it wrong.
You're good.
And they still got James Wood. They got dudes. So I don't really think the offense part side is the problem. And they're playing against a team whose defense is even worse than their own's been playing. So give me the Lions at
Okay.
home.
All right.
Isaac Tesla, by the way, is the guy.
Yeah, I was right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we need
But
to
I feel like
mention
this
the
is the
guy we've been
Isaac
alluding
Tesla
to.
breakout game on Thursday night. That would be the guy to bet the over on his receiving yards.
Oh
If
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
St.
I
Brown
mean
doesn't play.
we were very high on him after you kind of clued me into him. Just it's amazing how some guys go so under the radar sometimes. How the hell did Puka Nakua go under the radar? You know.
Both of them are similar in that they were not highly recruited.
Mhm.
This is a theme I always go back to in the draft is the guys who were not highly recruited out of high school. They basically carry that stigma, or if you want to call it, with them all the way through to the NFL. They have to prove themselves at every level, and they're always pushed down a couple pegs below guys that are viewed as being, they were better prospects coming in. They're still better prospects. They went to better schools. They're better prospects. So, yeah, they're neither of those guys was really recruited very highly. So Nakua was more of a mystery. He had two brothers that could actually were really good college players. You would
Mhm.
think at some point somebody would be like, well, this kid's also pretty good. He's got two brothers that play. He's a better prospect than we thought. But yeah,
Right. Right. Well, like you said, there's a few other good games this week. Let's see here. Another one that's going to help decide the future of the AFC South. The Colts have to go down to Jacksonville. The surprising Jacksonville Jaguars, are in the lead for the division right now after Indianapolis has dropped two straight here. So right now the Colts are favored by 1.5 on the road. I'll let you start off here.
what's the Jaguars' record, Jeremy? Are they
I think they're
7-4?
Yeah, I think they're 7-4. Let me see here.
They might even be better than that.
I'd already say they could be.
8-3 even. The point is, I was just going to go by the Corey Karbowski that neither of these teams feels like they're gonna they did they are they're a team that's worthy of being the record they're going to be if one of them wins this game.
Mhm.
So it makes it tough. Like I think the Colts are sort of and they're not in free fall exactly, but it feels like that the bloom was off the rose in Indianapolis. But I also don't think that Jacksonville's for real. So
Right.
um, I'm inclined to say that the Colts win narrowly this
Okay.
game. Being favored by 1.5, that sounds like Vegas has more or less the same mindset. But yeah, I figured Indianapolis slows their free fall by winning a close game against Jacksonville. Just really don't believe in the Jaguars. Although, they have better results this year in close games than they have previously, but I'm not sure I don't know. Indianapolis defense is still very good.
Yeah. No, they definitely are. I'm kind of with you though. It just feels like the Colts they don't know what they're doing right now. And honestly, with the fact that Daniel Jones's mobility is so severely limited right now by this fibula injury, and I think like the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville in like almost a decade. It's some crazy stat. My friend Mitch reminds me all the time we can't win in Jacksonville. So
Wow. Yeah.
I actually like the Jaguars to kind of come out and win this one. Jacoby Myers actually looked very good for them this past week. They kind of have some nice weapons on that team now. They might not all be well known. I was a big um, Brian Thomas Jr. fan
Mm-hmm.
last year coming out of the draft, who's definitely regressed this year.
Mm.
I know he's dealt with some injuries in the middle of it, but Jacoby Myers had a big game last week. Parker
Oh,
Washington that steps up when they need him. Brenton Strange has been very good for them at tight end, kind of a sneaky good player, and they have a good group of running backs too. They have ETN, Tootin. They even have another guy whose name I'm forgetting right now. So I actually like the Jacksonville Jaguars to win this one.
it's
If you
really
would have had,
quarterback hang up. By the way, Brian Thomas has not been as successful because his quarterback is terrible with the deep ball. So that's
yeah,
the first issue that Brian Thomas has. But Liam Cohen, I think, is done something good with them, which is diversified their offense. So it's got created opportunities for more guys, which is harder to defend, and works a little better for his quarterback as a distributor rather than a hero. So I like all of that stuff. I just kind of feel like, they're. I'm not sure that I think Indianapolis is all that great or necessarily even better than Jacksonville. It just feels like a game where Jacksonville's been hot. They're about ready for a game that's a little bit of a letdown, and the Colts have been, blah blah for a little while, and maybe this is a week where they eke one out. So it
yeah.
wasn't because I necessarily disagree with you about the job that Liam Cohen's done is very admirable. I do think they're a lot better than they were, and they're making more out of the talent that they have. Going back to our earlier conversation, there's a coach that's making more out of the talent I think that he has.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. Another big game. Bears have to go to Green Bay. Help try to decide who's going to punch the ticket. Who would have thought that the Jaguars would be like chasing a 2 seed and the Bears have the 1 seed after a very dominant win over the Philadelphia Eagles? Honestly, that score is not very indicative of how well the Bears went into Philly and just sucker punched them right in the face. Like some crazy stat, they ran for 280 yards, 230 of them came between the tackles. Something crazy like
Yeah,
that.
if you
Like
think about who Philly has at the tackles, it's incredible.
yeah, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. I mean, they boat raced this team and absolutely dominated it from the go. It was very impressive. I didn't watch the game or whatever because I was in the car, but I was like, wow. I like this was one of those games I had to go back to YouTube and watch because I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, well, there's the Ben Johnson effect for you. Are we sure we couldn't have fired Mike Tomlin a little earlier? I mean, just saying. Anyway, Packers are getting favored by 6.5 in Green Bay. I will start out just saying take the Bears plus 6.5. I think that's a very high line for the Packers. Like they're a good team. They're not a great team. And I don't get me wrong. I think the Bears are in the same boat. They're a good team. They're not a great team by any means. But we were talking to. I'm sorry, who was the Bears guy that we had on a few weeks ago?
Mark Shepard.
Yeah, Mark Shepard. Gosh, I feel bad. I remember, but we had Mark Shepard on a few weeks ago, and he was saying, Bears are playing very banged up. They're getting healthier. Jalen Johnson could be, playing Kyler Gordon. Just the team could be getting healthier as the year goes on. It's a crazy concept, but very true for the Bears. I like the Bears here. They just have the mojo going right now, and Jordan Love is still very up and down to me. Even at home recently, he has not been near as invincible as he has. So I like the Bears to win this plus six and take 6.5 every day in a game like this. It's a big rivalry game too. So you see this is the pull out all the knives and guns and make something work type of game because
Yeah.
this very well is the game that will determine who wins the NFC North. So
Yeah. I think I agree with basically everything you said, except for I just once again, I don't know that the Bears are really a number one seed kind of record team.
mm-hmm.
So it strikes me as this is kind of a reversion to the mean game for both teams.
Yeah.
Green Bay's probably a little bit better than what their record is, and Chicago's a little bit not as good as their record. So I'll take the Bears to cover. I like the idea of a close game, but yeah, the Tucker Kraft loss for Green Bay. I mean, that team with Tucker Kraft on it, I feel like would be a contender for the number one seed. But they
Mm-hmm.
seem to have come around to how to play offense without him the last couple of weeks. So I'm a little bit more hopeful. I'm not sure they're a Super Bowl contender, but I kind of feel like this week at home in a division game, I'll take Green Bay to win, Bears to cover.
Okay, gotcha. That's a solid strategy. I like it. One final one, just because these two teams really need it too. Texans have to go to Kansas City. Just another game. Should just be knives all out. Everyone needs this one type of game. Chiefs are at home. They're favored by 3.5. I'll start off on this one because I think you started off on the Bears one. But man, this is a tough one just because the Texans defense is just playing lights out right now. But the Chiefs just find ways sometimes. Immovable object meets unstoppable force. I've got to pick a winner. I don't really want to. I like the Chiefs to eke one out here at home. -3.5. I just think they're the more consistent offense at this point. Even though I will say this, if the Chiefs cannot run the ball, they are in trouble. Because Houston's defense, they are ravenous right now. They are back to rushing the passer really well. Jalen Petre's back, which makes their Joker, even harder to diagnose and just where he is. They have some great corners, a great rookie corner in Kamari Lassiter. But the Chiefs just find a way to eke this one out. I'll let it go to you.
I think it's a playoff game for both teams, basically.
Yeah.
I'm not sure either team can afford to lose this game and still realistically have a chance at the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I've been believing that the Chiefs kind of turn the corner and we're going to be, the Chiefs and roll off a few wins in a row, and they haven't managed to do that the way that I thought they would. They still, even their record from a pretty big haul. But in general, I kind of feel like, number one defense against, on Houston side against number one quarterback on the other side, and Andy Reid playing at home in a playoff game. Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes have been pretty good before in playoff games. I think the fact that, I'll take the home team and the better quarterback because that's what you do in a game where they seem evenly matched and they're both, playing for their season.
Yeah. Very true. Well, that brings us to our 5-star matchup. As
just
you
to
all
our
know.
to our 4.5 or 2.5-star matchup.
Yeah, right.
That is Ravens Steelers. It's Ravens week.
Yeah, which gets a 1 o'clock game. So believe it or not, I don't know if this is on CBS, but I don't think we've lost a 1 o'clock CBS game this year. So we're actually going to win. Who knows? But
not impossible. How could you predict anything with this team? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Ravens are. We have to go to Baltimore. They are favored by 6. I'll bite the bullet. I think the Ravens are going to win this game. It's just really hard to see how Pittsburgh can put anything together right now. I know like the backs are at the walls, something's got to give, if there's ever a game to win and kind of catapult ourselves into some success here, it's this game. I just have no confidence in this team right now. And that's just the simplest way to put it. I have no confidence without Derek Harmon that we're going to be able to stop the run at all. We saw it this past week. It was just god awful ugly. I think it could easily be that way again. We just need guys to step up, and no one's stepping up right now. And that's just like the most helpless feeling when it comes to football. You need guys to step up and play better, and they're just not. So I think that's the boat Pittsburgh's in, and it's going to cause them to sink. As far as the score goes, I think this is going to feel like a game for most of the game, so I feel like it's going to be a late 23-10 Baltimore win. I feel like we'll make things look tough, but we can't put the points on the board. We just don't move the ball right now. So 23-10 Ravens with the win.
Yeah, I was a little torn about going back and forth in my head a little bit about the scoring. One thing is the weather is going to be pretty much perfect football weather.
Oh, really? Okay.
For a game this time of year, it's going to be 42 degrees and supposed to be no wind, sunny.
Okay.
So that's pretty nice weather for the East Coast game in December.
Yeah.
I just like if you see the way the Steelers offense looked last week, the hard part, it'd be easier for me to imagine the Steelers, circling all the wagons and selling out to stop Baltimore's run game and keeping the score sort of low for them
Mhm.
than it is for me to imagine the Steelers scoring a lot more points than they did, in the last few weeks. Because if anything, everything that's wrong with Aaron Rodgers is still wrong with them, and everything that's wrong with the Steelers offense is still wrong with them. So it's like there isn't a real logical reason to feel like this matchup is going to be a whole lot better for them. So I've been toying around with 23, 24 points for the Ravens, and you know 13 or maybe 16 points for the Steelers. That's the range I'm in.
Mhm.
But I have to nail one for the prediction. I think it's probably a game where the Steelers still don't have very much success scoring. So I'll make it 23-13.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
call it 3 touchdowns, a field goal, and a missed extra point for Baltimore. But I don't think it's a one score game when it really boils down to it. As you said, it may be close throughout, but I kind of feel like the Ravens have an advantage in skill players that
Yeah.
eventually will be the difference in the game. Unfortunately, I mean, or fortunately, it depends on what your outlook is for the team. But I feel like if the Steelers win this game, it's going to create a false sense of the possibilities for the future
Yeah.
that are going to be even worse when Lucy pulls that football away. Like it in a way, they need to rip off the band-aid sooner. It would be better for all of us if they, I don't know, like everybody wants them to stay in it to the last possible second. That's true when you believe there's a possibility that they could win the Super Bowl if they could just eke this next first down, or if they could just put the ball in the end zone in this drive. Like when Ben was the quarterback until the absolute last play of the season, and even when they were down, by 2 scores with 30 seconds left in the game, like you'd still hope, desperately cling to the thought that they might be able to win this game, and if they just could win this game, they got a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
And like since I don't have that feeling right now, it doesn't make me so desperate to have them win. It doesn't make me feel so crushed when they don't. So at this point, like since unless something happens to make me truly believe that they can win, maybe like I said, maybe if they come out and they abandon what we'll call the Mike Tomlin offensive strategy and decide to do something different, and they come in with something on defense that's we haven't seen them do all year, blah blah blah. Okay, sure, they could make a statement that might have been who we are, but like the Ravens did when they fired their offensive coordinator on the bye week late in the season a few years
Mhm.
ago, that they're just going to somehow we're going to adopt a different strategy altogether because what we've been doing hasn't been working, and this is we're going to try new stuff, we're going to innovate. Yeah, maybe I'd start to feel differently about it, but otherwise I feel like it's the inevitable is coming, and we should probably extinguish whatever hope that we might still harbor about this season sooner rather than get disappointed later. I know that Swissville and some other people will disagree with me on that, but in a way, it's like I see it coming. I think we can all see it coming. But a
Yeah, I
win.
don't think anyone wants to be that way. No one wants to
Um,
be that way, but some of us, like you said, the writing's on the wall, and it's almost hieroglyphics at this point. It's almost been chiseled in.
yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, if they, that's, I guess what I'm saying is, if the Steelers win this week, it might win the battle but lose the war. If the war is the health of their franchise going forward, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Mhm.
In the short term, yes, it's nice to win and beat Baltimore, but in a way, I feel like it just sets you up for believing that you're still a contender, not only the rest of the season, but also next year, the off season, and that Mike Tomlin is still the right guy for the job and all that business. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I guess we'll
So
see, Jeremy.
say that again.
I guess we'll see.
Yep, I guess we'll see. Well, thank you all for joining us for another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. Jeremy Kohlman, you know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, and joined by Will Masisak, known as Bradshaw to Ben and Accidental 10 on Twitter. Hopefully this isn't a week where I text you and My text ends up the signature on your thing. Literally after that 4th and 2 play, I think I literally said we are the worst fucking franchise ever, and I am honored that I am now the signature on the website. But with that being said, hopefully we see some light at the end of the tunnel. We come out, we play well, we steal a much needed win in Baltimore. So,
Oh, hey, before you sign off, what happens in the Big Ten championship game this weekend?
so I will be there. I am going. I just,
It's in
I was,
Indy. It's in Indy, right?
yeah,
The
it's in
game.
Indianapolis. It's in Indy every year. So hopefully the Hoosiers can be up here a lot more often here in the coming future.
I'm
But
sure when they scheduled to say, "Oh, we're going to have our championship game in Indianapolis," that nobody thought, "Well, Indiana will be there every year, so it's a big
Indiana
advantage
has
for
not
them."
been relevant in that conversation since 1967. So no one thought it would ever be a home court advantage. Not saying that it will be either. Oh, Columbus is only 3 hours away. That they travel very well. I've been to a few. I went to one championship game when they came over, and they all travel very well. They're seasoned travelers to the Big Ten championship games. So, prediction. Man, the homer in me says, Indiana is going to pull out some stuff we haven't seen all year. We're going to do some things. We're going to make Ohio State one dimensional. The problem is Ohio State one dimensional is still very, very good. When you have guys like Jeremiah Smith and what's the Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, another tight end, Max Clare, who we're very familiar with because he was at Purdue. So we're very familiar with that kid. We'll see. Unfortunately, I think my Hoosiers fall just a little short. I think it'll be very hard to keep up for 60 minutes. When we went to Ohio State last year, we actually played very well for like the first 20 minutes of the ball game. And then we had one critical turnover, which it just snowballed from there. So the big thing is we can't let things snowball. This team seems, better mentality than that. That we've been a few times this year where Mendoza has thrown an interception to come back and actually go toss a winning score, aka Iowa, Penn State, Oregon. So this very well could come down to who has the ball last. I just think, unfortunately, Ohio State just their talent level across the board is so much better. If there's ever a matchup to focus on, it's going to be Indiana's offensive line versus their front seven. If we can block their front seven, I think we have a decent shot to win the ball game. But when you go up against Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caden McDonald, all these guys whose name you're going to hear come next April, there's a ton of them. Caleb Downs, I'd be, absolutely in the wrong not to bring him up. He'll be a top 5 pick, maybe top 10, just because the safety position isn't valued the same as between franchise and franchise. But right now, I just see the Hoosiers just falling short of winning their first Big Ten title.
I think it'll be a heck of a game. I think it'll be a heck of a game. I'd give Indiana more chance if it were in the playoff, because in a way, you're going to pull out all the stops. You're going to be a little more desperate. Maybe this game, maybe it's not as big of a, it's not a win or go home situation. Both teams are going to be in the playoff. It's just
That's true.
Who gets that bye? The bye is a nice thing to have, it seems like. So anyway, I feel like it'd be a very close game. Going to be fun. Dude, Ohio State maybe has a couple more dudes than Indiana has.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that hard to say that. So just from a pure talent level, they are definitely a step up. And Coach Signetti kind of even acknowledged it. Ohio State, is on another level right now with how they recruit and develop and all that, and we're catching up, but just
which is why I say in the playoff, you got to be Boise State against Oklahoma to beat Ohio State. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like maybe you don't pull all those stops in the Big Ten championship game. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here we go, Steelers, and here we go, Hoosiers. I'm going to throw it in there. I know that's not the name of this show, but hopefully both my teams pull out some victories this weekend. So
hey, go get them. Whatever works for you, rooting.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Enjoy.